Hi, this is Lamar, and you're listening to Getting to Third Space with Lamar and Tom. A third space is a term that refers to a safe space for people to come together for respectful dialogue in a spirit of listening, sharing, and learning. In this podcast, we explore what it means to have third space conversations, and we try to model them. If you like what you hear in this podcast, please be sure to subscribe, share it, and of course, like it. The more people join us, the quicker we get to third space as a society. Now let's get to third space today.
Hey, Lamar. How's it going today?
It is just a wonderful day. Kind of a little gray outside here, a little misty. But hey, I don't have to water my grass.
That's right. But yes. I'm so sorry. We have just been in this streak of incredibly beautiful weather. I mean, it's been cool at night. I get up and walk the dog in the morning, and it's like, today it was 53 degrees.
Oh, nice.
Feels like fall has arrived or something, but yeah. Well,
good for you.
Yeah, and happy Labor Day.
Happy laborious day to you as well.
Laborious day? I can be very laborious at times. And speaking of laborious,
yes.
For Labor Day, I've got a quiz for you.
Okay. What am I going to get out of this?
Well, a fabulous prize. So you get
a round of golf.
I know that's not a fabulous prize to you. It is to me. I'll let you drive the car.
You let me drive.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you 3 questions about Labor Day in celebration of Labor Day.
All right.
And then we will, if you get 2 out of the 3, you get the prize.
Okay.
How's that? And on a serious note, you know, why did Labor Day even? This is not a quiz question.
Oh, okay.
But sometimes, you know, we think of Labor Day as really the last day of summer, and so we run to the beach or something like that. But there's actually
last day of the swimming pool being open.
Last day of the swimming pool being open. But in reality, you know, there is a very serious reason behind Labor Day.
Yeah.
You know, we forget that at the time that Labor Day started. This will kind of give you a clue on one of the questions.
Okay.
So don't abuse that clue. All right.
Okay.
But I'll give you, you know, there was child labor.
Yeah.
People were working 6 and 7 days a week. Mm-hmm. And the work day was, you know, sometimes 10, 12 hours.
Yeah. Right.
And wages were low. And you could clearly be among the working poor. And in fact, many Americans were among the working poor. And
most of this was in manufacturing, right?
A lot of it was in manufacturing, right? Farmers maybe had a little bit. I mean, farmers had long days.
Yeah.
But they had a little bit more control over their, what their income was. So, yeah. So, and under these circumstances, you know, there were some protests that began, and people began to think, well, we need to treat our workers better. And so that brings us to my first question, which is, Lamar, what was the year and date of the very first Labor Day?
Okay, so we know Labor Day is in September. So I'm going with, it's going to be in September. And it's going to be I think it's the first Monday of September. So assuming that it's all stayed consistent over the years, I do know the date. I'm sorry, the year. 1882.
That's right.
Because we had talked about this a long time ago. So it's 1882 and the first Monday in September. How's that?
Wow. All right. That was terrific. Okay. All right. Yes. September 5th, 1882. Now, in what city was the very first Labor Day celebration? And by the way, it was a parade. I'll give you that much. It was a parade as the first Labor Day celebration.
First Labor Day parade.
In what city was it?
Okay, so here's how you deduce some of this. Because a lot of the labor union development and riots, you think of Chicago, right? Because a lot of that stuff is kind of centered around Chicago and surrounding areas. But this was not in Chicago.
Okay.
The first Labor Day parade was in New York City.
All right. Excellent.
New York
Excellent.
City.
New York City. Okay. But now, question number 3. And this is for the whole wad of fabulous prizes. A prize,
Okay.
actually. It was a parade. Where did
Okay.
it start? And where did it end? Dun, 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 dun.
It started at the New York Stock Exchange and ended in the stockyards.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Lamar. That was not just wrong.
Was
It
that
was
close?
incredibly wrong. It started at City Hall, and they went down to, and now this makes sense when you hear it, they went down to Union Square.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
There you go.
Right. There we are.
There you go.
Very cool.
Okay. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Your prize
Yeah.
is a package of Trident gum.
Sugarless gum.
It is. It is.
Thank
Now
you.
it's unfortunately it's like half gone.
Yeah. Okay.
But next time I see you, I'll buy you some. So.
Yeah, I'm not going to ask you where you got a pack of half gone Trident gum, but
Well, it's been hanging out here for a while. That's all
you've
I can
been
say.
working through it. I see. It's not new. Gotcha.
Okay, all right. So I just wanted to do that for a little bit of fun to acknowledge that this is Labor Day.
Yeah,
and
the serious side of Labor Day is that it. Even though we think about it as a time that we have picnics, we get together with family, barbecue, all that kind of stuff. End of summer, end of wearing white, whatever it might be. There's a real serious side to that, and the serious side of that is that the people who are working, they are often needing to leverage for best wages, best working environment. And, I was very fortunate being able to work for a company that took that seriously.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I wouldn't have worked for them. But that is an important part of understanding what Labor Day is about. And celebrating the progress that was made in that way.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned it's the end of wearing white. And of course, today we are wearing black and gold.
And gold, yes.
And
we didn't even say to do this. We just
we didn't. But we got to start the football season, and actually, we need let's hold those Hawkeyes up here. And this is for my neighbor Tom, who is a subscriber and listener to this. So
and is Tom a Hawkeye?
Oh no.
Oh,
Tom is an Ohio State fan.
Oh, he's a Buckeye.
He's a Buckeye.
Okay.
He's still a nice guy.
All right.
Yeah.
I have a couple of friends who are Buckeyes as well. But that's
all of us need to have Buckeye friends, right?
Okay. All right. And I'm in a country surrounding me here that, you're K-State, you're KU.
Yeah.
Or Nebraska. We've got a lot of Nebraska fans, but there's a few of us from Iowa here that we do celebrate together once in a while. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm guessing we'll probably loop back to college football at some point. The next few episodes. And I just want to say to Tom, thank you for listening, and good luck to the Buckeyes this year until they play Iowa.
There we go.
And I think he'd be okay with that. So
all right.
All right. So what are we doing today?
So today's a table talk. And when you and I get together and brainstorm, it goes a lot of different directions. What are we going to talk about? Because there's so many things out there to talk about.
There's way too many things.
And we were spitballing on a lot of things. And I think one of us said, hey, let's decide what are 3 things that we think people should know. And now Whether these are things that people really should know or not, that's debatable.
Yeah.
And so we're going to talk about 3 different topics. We're going to monitor ourselves to keep ourselves on track, and work through those
We hope.
topics. But we must remember, all of us must remember that we don't know diddly squat, but we do have opinions.
That's right. That's absolutely. I mean, that'll probably be on my gravestone someday.
Yep. So 3 things that we think you need to know.
Yeah. There we go.
All right.
All right. What's the first thing that we need to know, Lamar?
Well, Tom, you and I do a lot of joking around, but
Yep.
there are some things that are pretty serious too. We've talked a lot about farming on this podcast because you and I come from that background, but we're not farmers any longer.
No.
But we know farmers, and we even had a local Kansas farmer on the podcast, and that was very interesting. Hope to have you back again. But this conversation might be a little bit about that we don't know diddly squat, but we have opinions thing. There are some things that we have questions about and we're wondering about. One of the things that I've asked a few farmers about regionally. So what does it look like this year for grain storage? Now, you know that I, on occasion, will drive a semi during harvest for a friend, to haul grain to either to the elevator on his farm or to the elevator that he sold grain to.
Right.
Interesting little job. But the question is there enough storage? What do you think? Is there going to be a place for the grain? And the reason we had this question, and we're going to be dancing around some political conversations today. So understand that we're trying to look at what's going on versus kind of how we feel about people or leaders, etc. So we know that the tariffs have set off a lot of discourse between countries, and there's all this jockeying going on about contracts for purchasing grain.
Yep.
And some of those contracts have fallen through. Some of them have been revitalized. So what's happened with the grain that was supposed to have been shipped already? Is there room? And also, what does it look like kind of for the outlook of production this year? It's going to be a good year. So I don't know. What do you think, Tom? Do you think we're going to have enough storage?
Well, so we live in kind of the farming heartland of Maryland. We live in Frederick County.
Oh, interesting.
We are a huge dairy producing county. And so when I go, the golf course I play at, I can take a back route through the country, and I'll go by several dairy farms on the way out in just a 20-minute drive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm seeing that's a little bit different is that I'm seeing a bit more stockpiles of grain. I mean, because if you have cattle, you also have to have grain to feed them, right? And so a lot of these farms, they also have cornfields and such. And I'm beginning to wonder if they're really going to have room for the grain that they're going to harvest soon. And it's going to be harvest time in just another month or so, or actually probably the next few weeks. So I'm going to say I think it's going to be really tough for the farmers to have enough place to store grain at this point in time.
So I had sent you in preparation for this. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it, but I sent you an article that showed a map of where grain storage is centralized.
Mm-hmm.
Both, and I think you have to think about on-farm storage. So storage that, like my friend has, grain bins on his property that he can store things. And then there's the off-grain storage as well. So that would be like the local elevators and storage facilities that you would sell to and you would contract for space for as well.
Yeah.
And then there's another piece of this whole thing that I hadn't thought about, and that's transportation. So how do you get all this stuff from point A to point B beyond the storage? You know, railroad tracks, trains, obviously, semis, and then also barges. You and I have lived by the Mississippi growing up, and that a huge part of that commerce was transporting grain. So how do all those factors kind of play in? I think that's important. So I take a look at Iowa, for example. It's like 2 billion bushels of grain storage that's on the farm. Off grain storage is like 1.5 billion bushels, if I'm reading this correctly. Now, someone may correct me on that. That's fine. But most of the grain storage in the U.S. would be like Iowa, Illinois, Nebraska, Minnesota. Those would be the states with the highest amount of grain storage.
And the Dakotas, Kansas, perhaps? With wheat up in
half to even maybe a third. Comparatively. Kansas has a lot of off-grain storage, elevators, and you follow any railroad track in Kansas, you're going to get to an elevator. That's just the way it works. But that being said, if they hadn't been able to move the grain that was already in place because of contracts with other companies, then even though maybe you've contracted space, my question is, will the farmer who's harvesting have a place to go with the grain? So I asked a couple of farmers, like, what happens when you run out of space? And is that going to happen this year? The answer seems to be, storage is going to be at a premium this year. Mm-hmm. Well, I said, what do you do with it? And they said, well, we put it on the ground. And I've seen this, and I'm sure you've seen it too. Huge mounds of grain, and typically they'll put something on the bottom to keep it from spoiling, whether airflow of some sort or lime or a barrier or something. And they pile it up, and in some cases they don't cover it up. Because you get into the winter and it's not going to necessarily get terribly wet. But some do cover it. And I've seen that where they cover it and they put, if you see these big white mounds of things with tires on them, that could be either grain or some sort of feed. Right. But so there's if they have the space on their farm, that's one alternative.
Yeah. Now, something I'm wondering about, Lamar, because you mentioned this in the terms of the transportation. There are transportation costs, correct?
Yeah.
And their ability to pay those transportation costs is dependent upon their ability to sell the grain. So in a situation like we're having, in which the tariffs are causing countries, for example, in South America that are big grain producing companies to ship overseas to markets that we've generally shipped to.
Right.
If they don't have a place to sell it, and therefore recoup their money in transportation costs, what does that mean for the farmer? Or is it as dire as it appears to be, or do they have another way to deal with that?
That's a really good question. Because you and I don't know diddly squat, I've been trying to read up and learn about as much as I can. And Purdue, by the way, Purdue University does a lot of research in agribusiness, as does Iowa State and some other Midwestern universities. But it appears that almost everyone refers to where the government historically, when the farmers have had a difficult time moving grain, selling grain, low prices. By the way, prices always dip during harvest, or almost always dip during harvest, and so that's why storage is important, so that they could sell when the market gets better. Right, that's one of the reasons why it's important. And if you can't store it, then and you have to sell on the spot, then you're selling at a much lower rate. But they're always suggesting this. What's happened many times is the government has developed programs to reimburse or to subsidize or to somehow make the farmers whole.
Yeah.
And I think about that in an administration that you feel like you can kind of trust how it works. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't feel like we're in that kind of administrative situation now that people can kind of trust something to come through. So my gut tells me I don't know if that kind of resource is going to be available, or to the same degree maybe it has been in the past. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm quite fearful that we're going to, that farmers are going to be so fortunate as to have the government step in. And what we're observing right now is that there seems to be a real preference to step in for red states rather than blue states. We're seeing that with FEMA. We're seeing that in some other ways. That if you're in a red state, you may get some assistance from the government. And if you're in a blue state, well, maybe yes, maybe no. And so there seem to be so many factors going in right now to the decision that the federal government makes about who they're going to help and who they're not going to help. And unfortunately, many times it seems to be a political decision, not a decision based upon what's happening in the economy, what's happening in the country as a whole.
You're talking about now. This seems to be more of a political decision than it has in the past.
Yeah. Oh,
okay.
It's not like it's never been a political decision, right?
Right? Okay. I agree.
But now it seems like it's a more blatantly political decision. So for example, here in Maryland, we had flooding in Western Maryland, and right across the border in West Virginia, they had the same flooding. And the most recent news, in fact, I just read this in the newspaper today, the local paper today, that the administration was quick to grant FEMA's request for emergency, or West Virginia's request for emergency funding after the floods, but it has denied funding to Maryland for the exact same flood. And so, yeah, it just feels, and my concern is that as this even grows into an agricultural emergency, where's the federal government going to come down on it?
Is this going to grow into an emergency? Obviously, is a question. And so my sense of what I've been reading, okay, and this is not because I've been pulling data from anything that I've been doing, but it appears that the first part of this administration and the first part of this year, 2025, particularly in March, April, is when I was seeing a lot of information coming out about the tariffs are going to, just be devastating.
Yeah.
But things have kind of backed off, and I think we're in kind of a wait and see mode from the agricultural world. However, there was an interesting survey that Purdue did, and I think their respondents in their survey were nationwide, and their respondents were, I think they had to have a farm income of over $500,000, I believe. I mean, it was. I believe that was correct. Check. Don't hold me to that, but I think that's right. But the questions that they were asking the farmers in the survey had to do with tariffs, and will that lead to a better trade-off deals for the American farmer in the future? I thought that was an interesting question. Mm-hmm. And they've run this in 2020. Now they've run it again.
Right.
And what was interesting, and check me because I think maybe you've read the same survey that I sent to you. What was interesting is that the degree of agreement that it was going to lead to more problems for the farmer seems to be mitigated throughout this year. But the that there's that kind of supports that is kind of a wait and see attitude. Yes. I don't know, when you read that, what were you kind of getting out of that survey? What did you see?
Well, I think I really came to the same conclusion that in the end, I mean, it's really hard to prognosticate what's going to happen, and that farmers, being the resilient folks that they are, they're willing to wait and see and also grant the benefit of the doubt, and just hope that things work themselves out sooner rather than later. I think the biggest worry probably for farmers is the fact that anytime you're producing raw food really has an expiration date. Yeah. And there's only so long that they can juggle this, and they need to be able to move the grain and to put it into use. And I hope that happens for them.
I do as well, and that impacts you and me at the grocery store.
Yep.
And the decisions that consumers have to make. But I think that what our intent was to shine a light on the challenges that the agriculture world has based off of what's going on in our administration and decisions, and also what's going on worldwide, because farmers are working in a world economy. Yeah. And to think otherwise, I think is just hiding your head in the sand. Yeah. Kind of the erratic behavior that's been going on with the tariffs, the contracts of purchasing, international contracts, other countries like Brazil and Argentina and South America that are coming in with, I believe their big products that they're impacting is with like soybeans, and taking over some of those contracts that we may have lost. All of this jockeying around it kind of leaves everyone with a wait. We don't know what's going to happen. And here's my thought from a few things that I've read. Number one, if farmers have a place to be able to put grain outside of their own holding facilities, their own bins, that's going to be a premium price to do that, because there's going to be everyone's going to want that, and they're going to want it quickly. Yeah. Number two, I think the smaller the farm is, probably the more they're going to cut back on production, because there's a risk in that. You make a decision what you're going to do next year, right, based on what's going on this year, and production's a risk. Yep. And so my guess is, depending on how things are going, people are going to start hedging a bit to make sure they don't have a second year where they might get hit. And so they want to mitigate their risk. Those are a couple of things that come to my mind.
Tom here. Getting to third space is always free. We love doing this, and it is a labor of love we hope makes the world a better place. We don't ask you for money, but we do ask you to help us grow our audience. Hit the like button, share the podcast, and subscribe yourself. All of these will help us grow. Thanks.
So, Tom, let's move on. What's the next thing that we think people need to know?
Well, I'm not sure if they really need to know this, but there is quite a bit of buzz out there, especially in the second term of Mr. Trump, about whether or not we have entered a time in which Margaret Atwood's dystopian futuristic book, The Handmaid's Tale, is actually coming true in the United States. And so, a little of this popped up during the first term. Much more it's popped up during the second term, I think, because in these first 6-7 months of the Mr. Trump's term, we've seen a lot of things happen that have been reflected in the in the Handmaid's Tale. So, does anything come to mind for you about what changes we've been seeing that suggest that we may be in the time of we should say, in The Handmaid's Tale,
Okay.
for those of never watched it on Hulu or read the book, it's about a time when a theocracy comes to power in the United States, and the United States is divided. The Americans are really marginalized into a very small group, and the rest of the country becomes a country known as Gilead. And in Gilead, the rule of law is theocratic, and because of public health issues, women are no longer able to easily reproduce, and so families take what are called handmaids that are used really as breeders for individual families to produce children.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've ever watched the show, it's a little unnerving to watch.
Right.
But it does have a happy ending, I will say. I won't give away the ending, but it does have a happy ending. But that's the gist of The Handmaid's Tale, is that it becomes a very autocratic and oppressive theocratic form of government in the country formerly known as the United States.
So your question
Yes.
was, does anything come to mind?
Yeah.
Yes, things come to mind. I think what's happened in this first year of this administration, and actually the stage has been set for back in the election of the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
In the first administration of Trump's administration, set up the Supreme Court to kind of get to this first thing that's on my mind, and that is reproductive rights.
Yeah.
And I think the Roe versus Wade cancellation, you want to talk about it that way?
Yeah, it's canceled.
Want to say it, has had a huge impact, and is saying basically taking away the freedom of making a woman making choices, a freedom of a doctor and a patient making choice together, to where the government, in my book, the way I read this, and I know some will disagree, but has stepped in saying that's not going to be okay.
Yeah.
We're going to make that decision. Now, to be honest with you, the government has said, well, we're going to leave it to the states to make the decision. And that, I think, was rhetoric to kind of get around what's been happening. But so I think that's one area, is the rollback of reproductive rights.
And just to clarify one thing you said earlier, you talked about the election of the Supreme Court, and actually the Supreme Court is not elected.
It's appointed. I'm sorry.
They're appointed and then confirmed by Congress. We for our constitutional scholars out there, we don't want anybody to write in and say, "Oh, no, you got that wrong."
Thank you for correcting. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
But part of what happened with Roe versus Wade and reproductive rights was really driven by something else we've seen, which is really kind of the religious influence on law and order in the United States. And certainly, for many, many years, there's been a moral and religious debate around abortion in the United States. And I see the Supreme Court's ruling on that as really the fruition of this kind of religious push on abortion. So, but that's not the only place that we're seeing it either. I mean, we're seeing it in the books that kids are allowed to read in school as well. We're seeing it in other more subtle ways about what is appropriate and not appropriate, for people to read or view or it's and also in an extremely subtle way, kind of the connecting of religious faith, particularly evangelical Christian faith,
right,
with politics,
right.
And in fact, we have a video that we're gonna put on in a link to in our show notes that really demonstrates this very clearly, as it relates to the role of women in families and society,
as understood or preached by kind of the Christian nationalist perspective.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
And I think, both you and I have read quite a bit of information from, I think, Andrew Whitehead and other researchers about
Yeah.
Christian nationalism, and they would call it white Christian nationalism.
Yeah.
Sometime it might be a conversation here, but I think that this sexual identity,
Oh,
no,
yes.
this religious influence on reproductive behavior can be pushed out further to sexual identity, sexual expression.
Yeah.
What is um, what is even considered appropriate training and learning, which is an area you've been an expert in for your whole career,
Mm-hmm.
in your work over the years, and that is teen pregnancy and understanding education
Mm-hmm.
in that world. So a lot
And
of go ahead.
and of course, the big one that we see a lot of the religious influence now too is around the whole question about same-sex marriage.
Right.
We hear of efforts to try to ban same-sex marriage, and the push of transsexual people out of the military and out of public life.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's yeah. Well, and I guess it's what else comes to mind for you? Anything else?
Yeah. The way that politics are working, you know, there you can only function so far by a set of rules that
Yeah.
are written down as laws, but
Yeah.
there's a whole way to function that is the way it's always been, so that people are better represented, that the democracy is really functioning as a democracy, that the republic is functioning as a
Yeah.
republic. But when those ways of functioning and rules are, just because there's not a law, but they're overridden,
Yeah.
then the whole thing comes to I think, a screeching halt as far as productivity goes, and that's where you get that autocratic, kind of administration developing. And to me, that's what I see happening, and that's what I think we saw happening in The Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah. Well, and then there's this this issue of surveillance and social control.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and I live 45 minutes from downtown Washington D.C. If the traffic's not bad, that is. Right. And right now there is an occupation of Washington D.C. by National Guard, and
right.
efforts to take over the police department. Just yesterday, they took over Amtrak, the Amtrak station at Union Station. I don't know if you read that or not.
I
That
did
was
not.
late breaking news yesterday that the National Guard has taken over, and the federal government has taken over Union Station and away from Amtrak. And so on the same day that they rolled out a brand new class of Acela trains. So it's like, oh boy. Oh, and here's the new train. And by the way, we are now in charge. So, but so there's a number of themes from The Handmaid's Tale that come into play here. I also did find a really interesting piece, though, that appeared in a newsletter done by Waging Nonviolence. And the title of the article, we're going to put a link to this. We're not going to take time to go over it. But the title of the article is What the Handmaid's Tale Teaches About Resisting Authoritarianism. And this came out in May 23rd, 2025. But there's like 9 things that they suggest. And I read through it, and honestly, I felt like, wow, this kind of gives me hope. Here's one that you'll really like, Lamar, because this is in the spirit of what we're trying to do. Number 4 was yelling at people doesn't work either. And that's part of what we're trying to say to folks is that we really try to be respectful here, and with folks that we don't agree with, and that we are concerned about, and that we're frightened by their behavior. But I won't say that I've been perfect in not yelling, because I have at times, but I try really, really hard not to yell in the spirit of what they're talking about here, because that doesn't solve anything. It doesn't doesn't get us further down the road to finding a way through.
There are those, I believe, though, that they find a voice in the protesting, in demonstrating, and I want to support that.
Yep.
I want to encourage people to do that nonviolently, and as our as our Constitution also guarantees and allows.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say that there isn't a place for that. There really is a place for that. That's not really where I'm at this point. I don't feel as comfortable doing that as trying to be more influential in some other ways if I can. Right. But we all find, I think, some ways we can find ways to be effective. And I want to encourage people, if you're unhappy, if you're not okay with kind of some of these things that we're seeing that we've pointed out, let's find some ways to share that, because our Constitution encourages to. That's why a democracy is so important, because that's where the voice of the people to our representatives are extremely important.
And I just want to clarify one point here, and that is that in the article they're not saying don't protest, don't hide out. Just they're not saying just hide out. And stand back and don't yell at people. They're not saying that at all. In fact, they're saying quite the contrary. They're saying what undermines power is disobedience. Hiding and complying doesn't work. But what they're saying is that, especially in the one-on-one interactions with people, don't let it turn into a yelling match, because that's not really going to get you anywhere at all. So I think this is one of those that we can't resolve, we can't fix. No. And like you say, we don't know diddly squat anyway, but we do have an opinion. I loved your opinion. This is not the time for people to be quiet on the issue. If what they're seeing really concerns them, we need to be able to say that. Yes. All right. Take us into number 3, which is one we have been really looking forward to talking about because it is so stupid. But it's fun.
Tom, there was an accident in Pennsylvania. About a month ago, maybe?
Oh, it was terrible.
Yeah. And I'm going to call it, and I think others have called it too, the worst semi-trailer accident in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it was. It was the worst.
The worst. And folks, you need to spell worst with a U, WURST, because this was if you don't know what WURST is, please look it up. but this was a semi full of hot dogs.
Yes.
That was having some mechanical troubles, and basically I think it actually hit a car or two. There was some slight injuries. The semi then hit the guardrails and opened up.
Yeah. The side
spilled it spilled hot dogs.
Like a Vienna wiener can.
all over the interstate.
I'm trying to remember. Do you remember how many hot dogs got spilled on it? It was tons, wasn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, it was a whole semi full. And I thought, what do you do with a semi full of hot dogs?
Build a fire. Build a fire. Start cooking.
I never thought of that. Traffic's backed up, and so hey, build a fire and get some sticks out.
Yeah, just people are going to be hungry, waiting there for a while anyway, so just start feeding them hot dogs.
And there's some. You got to go take a look at it online, because there's some pictures like, how do you clean up hot dogs? Well, okay, you take a shovel. I get it. You take a shovel, throw it in a trash can, you put the can in the truck. I get it. But then I was hearing some of the experiences, some of these guys who were cleaning it up, and some of the law enforcement were saying, we didn't realize that hot dogs were that slick. when you step on the hot dog, your foot goes out from under you. I don't think I knew that.
Did I want to know that? Well, and then of course, as we were researching this, what did we find? We had no idea.
We were researching this. Can you believe it?
Well, it was on the news out here. I
Okay.
mean, I actually know the highway. I've been down that highway many times. When I was living in south of Baltimore, and I had
Yep.
a contract up in Rochester, New York, I would go right up that highway.
Oh,
And it
really?
happened just south of Shrewsbury, Pennsylvania, on the Maryland side, and I know exactly where that is. And yeah, the great hot dog disaster. That's
Oh.
that's all I'm going to think about now every time I go by there.
It's it's kind of a weenie story, but I'm sorry.
It's
I
a
could
weenie
not.
story.
It's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
weenie story.
yeah. But then as we were looking into this phenomenon, we discovered that about a year ago, outside of Chicago, I believe it was,
Mhm.
the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile was involved in a
You remember
rollover
that?
accident. How do you roll over the Wienermobile? I mean, you ever seen that thing? It's shaped like kind of like that. I mean, how do you roll that thing?
Well, I didn't. I couldn't remember, but if I looked at the picture correctly, I think it's the wiener's in a bun, and so you cut this kind of. The car part is a bun, and it's like it's long. It's a big thing.
It's a big. I've seen the Wienermobile in person.
Really?
I have. It was parked in Columbia, Maryland, one day, outside of a Chick-fil-A or something like that. Or oh no, it wasn't Chick-fil-A. It was a place that it was one of those strip mall restaurants,
Uh-huh.
and they weren't serving hot dogs. I know that, but the Wienermobile was there, and
Okay.
so I went up and I started talking to the people and stuff like that. And
Of course.
yeah, of course. And I mean, I've always loved the Wienermobile.
So, do you remember as a kid, you could get an Oscar Mayer wiener whistle?
Lamar, I still have my Oscar Mayer
Do you
Wiener
really?
whistle. I do. And, I'm sitting here thinking, I forgot to dig that out for this. I was going to and play it for you. And
Show
and
and
actually
tell.
one of the things I got when I approached the Oscar Mayer Wiener people was I got a new Oscar Mayer Wiener whistle, but it was not nearly as good as the original one I had.
So I do understand they carry a pretty good supply of wiener whistles.
They
in
do.
the Oscar Mayer mobile or the Wienermobile.
Yeah, that's right.
So the next time you're driving down the highway and you see a semi and you wonder what's in it, it could be wieners.
It could be wieners. Hey, so they did a Perplexity search.
Perplexity is an AI search, right?
It is an AI search. Yeah, I'm going to see if I still have it up here.
Hey, while you're looking for that, what do you call a hot dog in the winter?
I have no idea.
A chili dog.
Okay,
sorry.
you got
No,
more.
I'm not sorry.
You got more, don't you?
Oh, I got a whole trove.
All right. I'm afraid I can't find that, but except I did Google or I perplexed
Yeah.
the question: how many accidents a year in the United States involve people eating hot dogs?
Oh, that's a good question.
And actually, it said we don't really have that. It's
No
had a
kidding.
very nice official response. The National Traffic Safety Bureau does not keep stats on the number of people who have accidents while eating hot dogs, but we do know how many times hot dogs have been involved in accidents, in transportation. And then they cite the Maryland thing, and they cite the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile, right? But hit me with another wiener joke.
Why did the vegetarian hot dog cross the road?
I give.
To prove it wasn't chicken. I got one more.
Okay, all right, go.
All right, one more.
All right.
How did the hot dog get a date? Nope, don't know. Yep. He mustered up the courage to ask. I love dad jokes. Okay, we'll end
You
with
know
that.
what? You know what? As a service for all the children in our audience,
Yeah.
nearing Halloween, we should have a We should do a show dedicated to stupid jokes that you have to give when you get the go trick or treating. Right? Oh,
all right.
gosh.
Well, Tom, I think we have wrung the wiener dry of mustard, relish, and ketchup.
In other words, we've done enough damage.
We've done enough
with
damage.
this podcast. So,
but it's been interesting conversation, Tom.
It's been interesting. The farmer question is interesting. It really has a direct impact on us. The issue of, what is it we're heading into as a country is one that needs to concern all of us as well. I mean, both those two stories really do touch us as individuals.
And I would be very interested to hear what people, as they, hopefully these are conversation starters for people.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can hear back from some people say, what do they think?
Yeah. What if the food supply gets negatively impacted by the what's going on? What if we are headed down a road of authoritarianism that makes us look more and more like Gilead in the fictional Handmaid's Tale, as opposed to the United States? I think those could be really good conversation starters. And what if you do come upon an accident in which there are hot dogs all over the road? Do you stop and pick them up? Do you build a fire and eat them right there, or do you just kind of slide on by?
Yes, and if you don't know what a wurst is, you got to check it out.
Look it up. Oh my God! Well, this was fun and strange, Lamar.
Yeah,
it's been fun.
Tom, we just so we can share with our listeners that we've got some things coming. We've been working with a number of people who have agreed to be on as interviewees and guests.
Yeah.
And so we're looking forward to that as we're putting that together. So stay tuned. It's going to be an interesting early fall.
That's right. And actually our next podcast on September 15th is going to feature one of those people. So,
right.
All right, Lamar, have a good week.
You as well, man.
Tom here. Thank you for listening to Getting to Third Space with Lamar and Tom. Remember to click on subscribe to get notices about new episodes, and be sure to like and share the podcast as well. Opinions and ideas expressed in this podcast are solely those of Lamar Roth and Tom Klaus, and we'd like to hear your opinions and ideas too. You can leave us a voice message on Spotify, or you can email us at the addresses found in the show notes. Also, in the show notes, you can find links to some of the things we talked about today, so you can check them out yourself. Until next time, keep moving forward toward third space.
This podcast was reviewed and approved by Jake and Ebby Dogs Incorporated.